Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Mr. J. This is W.A.D. MTG. I'm coming at you again today with another wild-ass deck tech. This is one of my CEDH decks. It's Thrasios Tevesh Szat. I call the deck Ice Cold Dick Killer. So in my command zone, I've got basically 50 Shades of Nimbus. I've got Thrasios, the Triton Hero, as an infinite mana outlet to help me mill through my deck and put my lands in play, be able to play my mana sources so I can Thasus Oracle win the game. And Tevesh Szat is just a draw engine that if I can get it down quick, he can give me that card advantage I need. And if I play him later in the game, he can, try to hopefully balance it out and turn the tides for me. His ultimate isn't something I'm generally going for, but it does happen more often than you'd think. And we're just going to go through one card at a time because, like I said, I didn't realize that this would be a better way to do it, that I could just screen record through my Manabox subscription and be able to go card for card and go through the lines and everything super easy without pulling out all my stuff and having to manually go through the lines. So the first card in the list is Aboleth Spawn. It's a 3-mana creature, 2 and a blue. For Fish Horror, it's a 2/3 with Flash and Ward 2. And then he has Probing Telepathy. Whenever a creature entering the battlefield under an opponent's control causes a triggered ability of that creature to trigger, I can copy that ability and choose new targets for the copy. So it's basically there as a multiple of Thasus Oracle. So one of my opponents tries to win with a Thasus Oracle line, I can flash out Aboleth Spawn or already have Aboleth Spawn on the field. And since a triggered ability hits the stack, then my triggered ability will trigger and my ability will actually go off first. So I can win on top of another Thasus Oracle line with Tainted Pact or Demonic Consultation with Aboleth Spawn. So this deck has a bunch of pack cards in it that you won't normally see in other CEDH lists. I basically decided that I wanted to do like Tymna Thrasios and Kinnan combined into one list to make my own list. And I threw in a bunch of pet cards to keep a distinct sea creatures theme in the deck. So it's kind of an ode to one of my old standard decks that I played, which was the Sultai Sea Creatures deck. So I wanted to stick to that theme, throw in a bunch of pet cards, and surprisingly, it actually plays very, very well for having all these cards in the list that you wouldn't normally see in someone else's CEDH list. So with that being said, the second card in the list is AC Tyrant of Gyre Straits. It's a 6-mana 5/5 legendary creature serpent. I can play an additional land on each turn. Whenever I play a land, I can draw a card. So it's basically there as like a draw engine, a big creature that I can hit early with all my ramp package and stuff like that to power out any one of my big serpents or krakens. And it also helps me ramp and it draws me cards, so it fills multiple purposes. Nice little Birds of Paradise, just a mana dork. It doubles up and it's more effective if I got Kinnan on the field. Helps fix my mana. Bloom Tender basically does the same thing. If I can get my commander out, he can tap for 2 mana. If Kinnan's out, he taps for 3. If I've got all 3 colors on the field, he taps for 4. So, moving on, I got Chasm Skulker. It's a 3-mana Squid Horror 1/1. Whenever I draw a card, I put a +1/+1 counter on Chasm Skulker, and I draw quite a few cards in the deck. It is a CEDH list, so I'm drawing a lot of cards. I'm giving them a bunch of counters, and then whenever Chasm Skulker dies, I create X1/1 blue squid creature tokens with Island Walk, where X is the number of +1/+1 counters on them. And surprisingly, that's also a very, very good ability because I can get him late game. I get him boosted up. He becomes a threat to life totals. People will want to kill him, or I can kill him myself and make a bunch of unblockable, basically 1/1s because we're playing CEDH. So most players are going to have some sort of blue deck on the field because blue is the most dominant color in CEDH. Moving on, I got Delighted Halfling, 1 mana 1/2, mana dork, taps for 1 colorless, and I can add a mana of any color if I spend that mana to cast a legendary spell, and then that legendary spell can't be countered. So it means an uncounterable commander, an uncounterable Tevesh Szat, uncounterable Krakens, and that's basically what it's there for. If I have Kinnan on the field, it doubles it up. Devoted Druids, they're not just as a mana dork, but they're for combo lines to help me create infinite mana. For 1 and a green, Elf Druid 0/2, that taps to add a green. Put a -1/-1 counter on Devoted Druid, untap Devoted Druid. So we got an Elvish Spirit Guide in there. It's just there for ramp. It's also a creature ramp, creature-based ramp, so it helps trigger other cards that I'll get to here in a second. Enduring Vitality is an excellent add in Kinnan. Therefore, it's an excellent add in Ice Cold Dick Killer, because it's a creature-based CEDH deck. So I'm landing a bunch of creatures. A lot of my creatures are already mana dorks, and if they're not mana dorks, it turns them all into mana dorks. And if they don't have haste, I can still tap them to Enduring Vitality's ability. So, and then if you get rid of it, it comes back as an enchantment, so it serves multiple purposes. Fanatic Aronis is another mana dork I got in the deck for 1 and a green. Snake Druid, that's a 1/4, it taps for a green, but he has Ferocious, so he taps for 4 green as long as I control a creature with power 4 or greater, which there are quite a few of in this deck, because it's, it's kind of the balance between high power and CEDH, so it's kind of a fringe CEDH deck, but because I got all the Krakens and Serpents in there, it's a good chance that he's going to have Ferocious, and if not, I can externalize him from the graveyard, and he gives himself Ferocious. And he's a 1/4, so he doesn't die easily to Bowmasters. They'll just, an opponent with Bowmasters is just going to ignore him. So another big Kraken, a sea creature in the deck, is Gyruda, Doom of the Depths. For 4, a blue or black hybrid. For 2 blue or black hybrid and 4, legendary creature, Demon Kraken. When he enters, each player puts the top 4 cards of the library into their graveyard. I put a creature card with even converted mana cost from among those onto the battlefield under my control. Doesn't have to be mine, can be one of my opponents. And it's a 6/6 body. That's also a Kraken. So Hazel's Brewmaster is there for the Devoted Druid lines. I play Hazel's Brewmaster, bring Devoted Druid back from my graveyard as a food token, and I create infinite green mana, which is an outlet then for Thrasios to help me win the game. So that's one of my combo cards. Next is Hullbreaker Horror. No stranger to CEDH deck. It is a Kraken. A Kraken Horror, which horror obviously is something that's kind of a theme of the deck too. That's like several of the creatures are horrors. So it's something that doesn't particularly come up, but it can come up with Cavernous Souls to make them uncounterable. But this spell is already can't be countered. And whenever you cast a spell, I can choose one, return target spell you don't control to its owner's hand, which is something that if I've got one of my infinite mana outlets, which is Isochron Scepter, I can reactivate the Isochron Scepter over and over again, untap all my stuff, send all my opponent's stuff back to the hand, or whenever they cast the spell, I activate it again, I get a spell trigger on the stack, return that spell back to their hand, it locks them out. Great card, Hullbreaker Horror. On to Kinnan, obviously he's an addition to the deck, because like I said, I took like a Kinnan build and like a Tymna Thrasios build and kind of smushed them together and then made it my own with a bunch of pet cards and kept the theme of like legendary sea creatures, Krakens, Horrors, Serpents. So it's a 2/2, legendary creature, human druid. It makes all my mana dorks better. All my non-land permanents that tap for mana add an additional 1. And then he's also an infinite mana outlet. If my opponents kept me off of Thrasios and I can make infinite mana, I can spend all that mana into Kinnan activations. Here, let's just read it. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. I could put a non-human creature card from among them onto the battlefield, put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. There's no humans in the deck, so if I make infinite mana, I can go through my entire deck and pull out every single creature. So, Coma, Cosmos Serpent. It's a card you probably won't see in a CEDH deck, but you will see in a lot of high power builds. It's a 7-mana creature. 3, 2 green, and 2 blue for legendary creature Serpent. Right on theme, it's a 6/6. It can't be countered. And at the beginning of each upkeep, create a 3/3 blue Serpent creature token named Coma's Coil. I can sacrifice another Serpent, choose one. Tap target permanent, its activated abilities can't be activated this turn. Or Coma Cosmos Serpent gains indestructible until end of turn. Then I've got the other Coma in the deck, Coma World Eater. Also 7 mana for 3, 2 green, and 2 blue. It can't be countered. It has Trample and Ward 4. And whenever Coma deals combat damage to a player, create 4 3/3 blue Serpent creature tokens named Coma's Coil. There's a mutated cultist in the deck, an Eldrazi Horror for 2 and a black. He has the Void. He's a 1/3. When I cast this spell, I can remove all counters from up to one target permanent or opponent. The next spell I cast this turn costs 1 colorless less to cast for each counter removed this way. And it has Death Touch, so it's a good blocker. It's a 3-drop, so it's not particularly that efficient at 3 mana, but it does help me do other things that I'm trying to do in the deck. I'll get to that here in a second. Nadir Kraken, it's just another Kraken in the deck. It's a 3-mana Kraken for 2/3. Whenever I draw a card, I can pay 1. If I do, I get a +1/+1 counter on him, and I create a 1/1 body, tentacle creature token. So that's good for several different reasons. I can just build up a field. If I got like a draw engine in play, I can keep building up 1/1s, paying 1. He gets stronger. Then he might be able to get through, and it's right on theme with the deck with, sea creatures. And it being a Kraken will help with a couple other cards. So Nezahal, Primal Tide is a 7-mana creature, legendary sea monster, Elder Dragon, or Elder Dinosaur. It's a 7/7. It can't be countered. And so you got a theme for most of my big creatures can't be countered because we are playing CEDH. So I am going to run into a lot of counter spells. And the last thing I want is to tap all my mana dorks and all my mana, or most of my mana, for a big mana play and have that creature be countered, because then it's just a blowout. So I have no maximum hand size, which does help in a couple different ways if he's on the field. And whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, I draw a card. So it's just another one of those draw engines for the mid-range grindy hell that is the state of CEDH right now. And then I can discard 3 cards, because I'm drawing a bunch of cards, exile Nezahal, and then return to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. So he has built-in protection on top of the fact that he can't be countered. So we got Runo Stormkirk. It's a 3-mana creature for 1, a blue and a black for another legendary creature. Vampire Cleric with flying. It's a 1/4. When Runo Stormkirk enters the battlefield, put 1 target creature card from my graveyard on top of my library. So it does help for a little bit of recursion. It does help for another card that I got in the deck that I'll get to here in a second by stacking a card on the top of my library. That is something I'm actively trying to do. And then at the beginning of my upkeep, I look at the top card of my library, which could be a big creature. If I may reveal that card. If it's a creature card with mana value 6 or greater, I get to transform Runo. And when he's transformed, he becomes a 3/5 flyer, legendary creature, Kraken Horror, Krothus, Lord of the Deep. And it's a flying 3/5. He's right on theme here. So it's something that's actually very hard to do, is build a distinct theme into a CEDH deck. When most people go on and they just like net deck and they look at lists online and they look at what other influencers and stuff are talking about, and they go card for card for their deck. So because this deck isn't that, it's a creation of my own making, this fit in perfectly for me. So when Krothus, Lord of the Deep, attacks, I create a tapped and attacking token that's a copy of another target attacking creature. And since the deck is a creature-focused deck, at times it does get kind of aggro. And if I can copy my creatures that are attacking, that are tapped and attacking, and do more damage, then I'm just putting more pressure on everybody's life total. If that creature happens to be a Kraken, Leviathan, Octopus, or Serpent, I create 2 of those tokens instead that are tapped and attacking. And there are a few, most of them are legendary, so they'll die to state-based actions, but there are a few who aren't legendary, who if I do get to copy why they're attacking, it becomes ridiculous. So moving on to the next card, we've got Seedborn Muse, awesome card in Tim Thrasios, awesome card in Kinnan, doing the same thing here. I'm untapping, I can activate Thrasios on everybody's upkeep, I can hold up mana for counter spells or interaction, I can untap the One Ring, etc., etc. So, great card in the deck. One of the better cards that's a non-legendary Kraken in the deck is this 6-drop here that I can bring back with Gyruda here. So if I hit this guy, I can bring him back. There's other ways I can play Krakens and stuff for free. So we'll get to that here in a second. But spawning Kraken for 5 and a blue is a Kraken, obviously. He's a 6/6. Whenever a Kraken, Leviathan, Octopus, or Serpent I control deals combat damage to a player, I create a 9/9 blue Kraken creature token, which can be copied by Runo. And the spawning Kraken itself can be copied by Runo. So I'm making potentially, multiple 9/9s, potentially multiple spawning Krakens, which each trigger will make multiple 9/9s. It's great in the deck. You don't normally see it in a CDH deck, but it's one of those pet cards. So here we go at 5 mana, right on theme. We've got a 5/5 Kraken here, Storm Surge Kraken for 3 and 2 blue. It has hexproof and it has Lieutenant. So as long as I control my commander, one of my commanders, it gets +2/+2, and as whenever Storm Surge Kraken becomes blocked, I can draw 2 cards. So most people in their CDH decks have a lot of low drop creatures, a lot of little creatures. They're there for value. They're there to recur. They're there to give them some sort of advantage or a massive efficiency. So they're not going to want to block with those creatures, but if I'm pressuring their life total and I'm swinging at them with a 7/7 hexproof that they can't really interact with, that may have been uncounterable and hexproof, they're going to want to block that creature. So drawing me a couple cards. So we got another mana dork here that's kind of immune to Bowmaster's Sylvan Caryatid for 1 and a green. It's a plant with 0/3 defender and hexproof. So it can't be targeted by anything, and I can add 1 mana of any color to my mana pool, which just gets better with Kinnan. Obviously, Thassa's Oracle's in here for Thassa's Oracle lines to win me the game. It's one of my big win cons. Tishana's Tidebinder. It's a great card in the deck for 2 and a blue. It has flash. It's a 3/2 Merfolk Wizard right on theme. And then with Tishana's Tidebinder enters the battlefield, I can counter up to 1 target activated or triggered ability. So I can counter ETB ability, like Thassa's Oracle or something like that. It's kind of like a stifle effect. It also counters an activated ability, not just triggered abilities on the stack. So if someone activates, like a Kinnan or a Magda or something like that, I can flash in Tishana's Tidebinder, lock that card up, Planeswalker even. And then that permanent loses all abilities for as long as Tishana's Tidebinder remains on the battlefield. Vampire Hexmage made the deck. You wouldn't normally see that in most CDH decks. It's a 2/1 Vampire with first strike. Then I can sacrifice it to remove all counters from target permanent. Now you guys will see why that's in here in a second. The last creature in the deck. Now this one is a sneakily good. It's very, very good in CDH. Now, people normally wouldn't add a creature like this into CEDH because it's a 6 mana do nothing when it hits the field card. But I have ways to sneak creatures out and play them for free. I have ways to potentially play it at an end step at instant speed. So it could come in like with pseudo haste or play it for free at an end step or something like that. And it's a 5/8 Island Walk, Swamp Walk, Kraken, legendary. So there's ways to play it where they can't be countered. And black and blue are the most dominant CEDH colors. So when I do land a Rexiel, it just becomes a huge threat because most of the table can't block him. He has Island Walk and Swamp Walk, so he's going to get in for damage if they can't kill him. And if they do, or they try to interact, then I'm going to try to counter that or protect him with mostly just spot removal. Because CEDH doesn't usually see board wipes if it's like maybe a Toxic Deluge or something like that, or a Psych Rift or something, just throw it back to my hand. But I can potentially protect him. So when Rexiel, the Risen Deep, deals combat damage to a player, which is very easy to do when he's on the field, I can cast an instant or sorcery card from that player's graveyard without paying its mana cost, which is busted in CEDH because every player's decks is just combined and loaded up with the most powerful instants and sorceries in the game. If that spell would be put into a graveyard this turn, I exile it instead. So I also can recur a Brain Freeze to turn off what's it called line? Underworld Breach. So I can turn off an Underworld Breach line and hit a Brain Freeze, or I can just target any value spell or removal spell or counter spell or something and be able to hit it on the stack if they try to, play something at the end of turn or after combat damage or right before combat damage. Well, I guess I wouldn't be able to pull the spell, so it'd have to be after combat damage. but it still works. It works amazingly well. You'd be surprised at how well Rec Seal actually does work. And some things aren't going to work as good as others. Like when you land them, it isn't always the greatest spell in people's graveyards, but chances are he's going to hit through to somebody, and chances are there's going to be something good you can play. So we'll get into the artifact suite of the deck. Got an Arcane Signet in there for ramp, Basalt Monolith in there to combo with Kinnan. Isochron Scepter is basically just in there to combo for infinite mana, but if I need to value an instant, a 2-drop instant on Isochron Scepter, I can, because I have ways to untap it where I can activate it multiple times in a turn. So I got a Lotus Petal. I've got a Machine God's Effigy to combo with Devoted Druid, and when you activate the Devoted Druid line with Machine God's Effigy, I don't just make infinite green, I can make infinite green and infinite blue mana with Machine God's Effigy. Mana Vault is basically a ritual effect, but I have ways to untap Mana Vault, so it can be a reoccurring ritual effect. Like Manifold Key. Manifold Key can untap my Mana Vault, it can untap my Basalt Monolith, it can untap the One Ring. So, Manifold Key. Now we've got, it also target creature can't be blocked this turn. So if I have like a Spawning Kraken out there, they have blockers, I get them through, I can make a 9/9, or let's say I'm playing a deck that doesn't have blue, I get a Rec Seal, I can make him unblockable, pull out a instant or sorcery from the graveyard, cast it for free. It doesn't really come up much, it's in there for the untap effect, but it does come up. Mox Amber, I got Thrasios, I can play Mox Amber, it's just basically another mana rock that plays for 0, that can help me create colored mana in the situation where I need to create colored mana, like I'm going through my deck with Thrasios activations and infinite mana. Mox Amber is one of the ways I'm going to be able to cast Thassa's Oracle. I've got a Skull Clamp in the deck. It's arguably an MVP card in any Tevesh Szat deck, because I'm creating 0/1 thralls, and then I won't have to sacrifice them to Tevesh's ability. I can sacrifice them to the Skull Clamp, and then help me draw. Soul Ring, it's a gimme card. The One Ring, in this deck, the One Ring is great. I have multiple ways to untap it, to do it multiple times in a turn. Not just Seedborn Muse, not just Manifold Key, not just Voltaic Key, but also Manamo. So it's a One Ring deck. I'm actively looking to land a One Ring, so I can draw and draw and draw and draw and draw with it. Sure, it will threaten or pressure my life total, but generally it's going to give me enough card advantage over the course of a turn or two where I'm going to be in position to win the game. This guy next to me, sorry if there's background noise. I am in my truck. As always, that's one of the reasons why I use Manabox, is because I have my laptop and internet access with me, but it's a little easier for me to theory craft and do deck techs and build decks, come up with new ideas or slot cards in and out on Manabox, because it's on my phone. So I don't have to pull out my laptop and my internet box, my router and all that stuff, and build out my setup just to be able to build decks. I can just do it on my phone. So in the instant suite, we've got a lot of 2-drop instants that can be Isochron Scepter cards if I have an untap effect on the field, but generally it's just there for interaction. I've got an Abrupt Decay, can't be countered, destroy target permanent with converted mana 2 or less. Assassin's Trophy, another 2-drop instant, destroy target permanent an opponent controls. Its controller may search their library for a basic land card, put it on the battlefield and shuffle. Is it tapped? No, just put it on the battlefield. This guy, this guy's losing air, and it's getting kind of annoying. So I'm going to try and hurry up and get through the rest of it, because this guy's just popping air every couple seconds. So another 2-drop instant, Born Upon the Wind. I may cast spells this turn as though they had flash, draw a card. I thought about putting High Fate Trickster in there to give my shit flash, so I can, Thassa's Oracle, Demonic Console or something on top of somebody's win con, win at instant speed on top of their win. But it turned out that Born Upon the Wind was just a better card for the deck, and that I needed to drop the overall mana curve of the deck, and to do so, Born Upon the Wind took the slot of High Fate Trickster. Also, it's not a Valley Flood color deck, because everything's an instant basically anyway in the deck. So there's only a few cards. Like, why am I going to give my artifacts flash? There's no super big reason to give my creatures flash, but it doesn't really come up all that much, so it's not really in there. If I need to, I'm going to do Born Upon the Wind. So crop rotation, as an additional cost to cast this spell, sack a land, search my library for a land, put that card on the battlefield, then shuffle. It's kind of a combo piece. It helps me get to a combo. It like irons out that line that I'm going to get to as soon as I get to the lands. Obviously, I'm talking about Dark Depths here because I have Vampire Hexmage. And where'd he go? And Mutated Cultist in the deck. So, I'm doing Dark Depth lines, so I can pull out Merit Lodge, 20/20 Flying Indestructible. So that's what crop rotation is in the deck for. Also, it can help me get to a certain land, whatever land I might need at the time. So it serves multiple purposes, but it's basically just in there for the Dark Depth lines. So I've got a Cyclonic Rift in the deck. It's one of the only ways I can board wipe in the deck. Return target non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand, and then it overloads to return all non-land permanents you don't control to their owner's hands. And since it is kind of an aggressive creature-based deck, if I don't hit a combo and I'm not creating infinite mana and I don't have one of my win outlets, win cons on the field or in hand, Psych Rift can give me a combat damage win, which is kind of rare in CDH, but it does happen with certain decks, and this deck is one of them because it is a creature-focused deck, and I do have a lot of bigger creatures, and I can put pressure on people's life totals with creatures. So if I can just wipe everything off their field and have a nice built-up field with creatures myself, I can potentially just, overwhelm them and get a combat damage win. Dark Ritual is just in the deck basically to power out Tevesh Szat. It's just another ritual effect in black. Gives me the mana I need early. Might help out power out Tevesh Szat. Might help out power out a One Ring. Might help power out one of my bigger Krakens or Serpents on a turn 3 or a turn 2. So that's one of the things that's there to do. Deadly Relic, just a free interaction spell. If my commander, usually Thrasios, it's pretty easy to land in the deck. So usually I'll have a Thrasios on field for Deadly Relic. Demonic Consultation for Thassa's Oracle lines. Win me the game with Thassa's Oracle Demonic Consultation. Play the Thoracle. Wait for its ability to resolve. Hold priority if the card actually resolves. Casting of the card resolves. Hold priority on its ETB. Demonic Consultation. Dramatic Reversal is there for Icecrown Scepter. I can untap all my other mana rocks and things. All my non-land permanents, so also my mana dorks to help create infinite mana, so I can win the game with Thrasios. Fierce Guardianship, for the same reason Deadly Relic is in the deck. It's free interaction. It's easy to get to my commander. Just a free counterspell. Flare of Denial, it's pretty much the same thing. It's a free counterspell in the deck, because I'm playing a lot of blue. I do have a lot of blue creatures that can hit. One of them other blue value creatures can be sacrificed as a counterspell. And then it does help when I get like a Chasm Stalker. Where'd he go? Like a Chasm Stalker. He's a really good target for Flare Denial. Build him up, draw a bunch of cards, sack him, make a bunch of 1/1s with Island Walk. Counter the spell. So I'm on the Force of Negation, just another free counter spell. Exile blue card, counter target non-creature spell. It helps me interact early. It helps me interact with other people's win cons. Just a nice control spell. Mana Drain made the list, not only because it's a heavy blue list, but it's also a big mana list. So I need that mana. And if I can mana drain a decent sized spell, it's going to help me early game, like turn 2, turn 3, power out one of them big Krakens or Serpents, which can give me an overwhelming advantage early in the game. Also, I can put it on Icecrown Scepter, which normally wouldn't be great because your opponents can see that you have a mana drain open, but I have Voltaic Key. I have Manifold Key. I have, what's his name? Seedborn Muse, and other ways to untap artifacts. So I also have Manamo. Manamo won't untap Isochron Scepter, but it is a way where I can untap the Scepter and hit multiple mana drains in a turn rotation. Noxious Revival. I added this card to the deck because there are times when I'm going through my lines where I'll end up binning a Thrasios Oracle, and it's kind of difficult to get it back. So this is one of the ways I use to get Thrasios Oracle back. Put target card from a graveyard on top of its owner's library. I can also use it to trigger the top of my library effects to get like a Quest for Ula's Temple resolved with enough counters on it so I can drop free Kraken, Serpents, Leviathans, and Octopuses. So it's a way for me to do that for free for just the low cost of 2 life, and I don't really particularly have to put green mana into it because it's a Phyrexian card. Summoning Trap, it was more of the recent additions to the deck because I am playing CEDH, because I do have big creatures, because people are going to try to blow me out with a counter spell, trying to counter one of those big creatures that's not like a Coma or a Hullbreaker Horror that can't be countered. So if I do land another decent creature or like a Seedborn Muse or something, and someone tries to counter that, I can Summoning Trap for free. If a creature spell you cast this turn was countered by a spell or an ability an opponent controlled, I can pay 0 rather than pay Summoning Trap's mana cost. I look at the top 7 cards in my library and put a creature card from among them onto the battlefield. So it's just a free way to bring out one of my sweet creatures, put the rest on the bottom of my library in a random order. Tainted Pact is there for multi-purpose reasons. I can Tainted Pact for whatever card I need, like a tutor card, and exile all the other cards that are in the way and stop whenever I want to. Or, so that's like a value Tainted Pact. Or I can Tainted Pact for a Thrasios Oracle win. So it's got multi-purposes in the deck. Vampiric Tutor. It's one of the tutors that made the deck. It's efficient, very efficient tutor. But I search my library for a card, shuffle it, and put that card on top. Then I lose 2 life. So I can search for a combo card that I need to draw on my next turn at instant speed for 1 mana. Or I can manipulate the top of my library with a creature card for Quest for Ula's Temple to level that up to 3 to be able to cast Krakens, Leviathans, Octopuses, and Serpents for free at every end step. Then there's a Worldly Tutor. For the same exact reason, it's a tutor. I can search for a creature combo if I need a creature combo, like the Hazel's Brewmaster, something for infinite mana outlet, or a Kinnan, or something like that. I can use it for a value search, or I can search for a Thrasios Oracle or a Wincon, or a combo piece. And I also can use it just to put whatever creature I need on top, like a big Serpent, Leviathan, or Kraken or whatever, to trigger the Quest for Ula's Temple. Beseech the Mirror is basically just there for the 1 ring. That's basically why the card's there. It's a 4 mana sorcery with Bargain, so I can sacrifice an artifact, enchantment, or token as I cast a spell. So I am creating little tokens with like Nadir Kraken and things like that. So I can do it fairly value and like easily and in a way where it really benefits me to be able to do it without much drawback. And I can like Dark Ritual into it. So it's hard. It's kind of hard for me to create 3 black mana, but if I can do it early in the game and create 3 black mana, then I can sack a token or an artifact or something and go right for the 1 ring. Search your library for a card, exile it face down, then shuffle. If that spell was bargained, you can cast the exiled card without paying its mana cost if the spell's mana value is 4 or less. So I can also do it for a combo piece. Then put the exile card into your hand if it wasn't cast this way. So like a Machine God's Effigy or something like that, it works very, very well with that as well. If I've got a Devoted Druid already in my graveyard, I can Beseech the Mirror for a Machine God's Effigy, pull that out, get I guess it has to be on the battlefield for Machine Gods. But for I can go multiple different lines other than just the 1 ring. So it is a multi-purpose spell. It's just mainly there to search for the 1 ring. Calling Ritual, it's the only other board wipe in the deck other than Cyclonic Rift. It blows people out, and if I'm later in turn order, I create a bunch of mana because it destroys each non-land permanent with mana value 2 or less. Then I add a black or a green for each permanent destroyed this way. So it's like a catch-up card, a ritual card, adds a bunch of mana. If I'm later in turn order, I can use that mana to drop a giant Kraken or to play multiple spells. Build my board up and really help me catch back up after blowing out my opponents. It's got a demonic tutor in the deck, for obvious reasons, consistency in the deck. It's just another tutor card to help me get whatever I need into my hand. And on to the enchantment suite. It's basically just a bunch of engines. So I've got black market connections for draw and ramp. So I can choose one or more. I normally won't create the 3/2 shapeshifter creature, but I can if I need to for like sacrifice reasons. Or it can be, because it's a shapeshifter with changeling, it also will count as a kraken. So if I have like spawning kraken on the field, I can pull out the shapeshifter, swing on somebody, create a 9/9. But generally I'll use it to create a treasure and draw a card for ramp and draw. In Search of Greatness is a great card in this deck. My original deck, that was the Sultai Sea Creature 60 card deck that I played many years ago in Standard. Scry was a main focus in the deck. I would stack the deck, use Quest for Ula's Temple, pull out my Krakens and stuff for free. And Scry is just a way to really help me do that, to manipulate the top of my deck. And just like Surveil, right? It's kind of time walks you a little bit just by knowing exactly what the next card you need is. And this card is modal. So in Search for Greatness also allows me to do something else. At the beginning of my upkeep, I can cast a permanent spell from my hand with converted mana cost equal to 1, plus the highest converted mana cost among other permanents I control without paying its mana cost. If I don't, then I scry 1. So in Search for Greatness really is great. It's one of the ways in this deck, it's one of the ways I'm landing, free Krakens and stuff. 6-drop Kraken to get it. All I need is a 5-drop on the field. So if I've got a Storm Surge Kraken or a Seedborn Muse or something on the field, I can land one of the 6-drops. If I already casted a 6-drop and stuck it, right, and went through the trouble of spending all that mana, and I got in Search for Greatness out, now all of a sudden I can land Comas for free, or a Hullbreaker Horror for free, without paying its mana cost. So that's the purpose of In Search for Greatness in the deck. It really is a underrated card. Performs very well in this deck. Mystic Remora obviously is a staple in CEDH. Get it early, draw a bunch of cards, gain advantage from your card advantage. Nice little engine. Quest for Ula's Temple. This is one of the cards the deck was built around that I've been talking about through this whole deck tech. It's a 1 mana enchantment for 1 blue. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may look at the top card of your library. If it's a creature card, I reveal that card, or I may reveal that card, and put a quest counter on Quest for Ula's Temple. At the beginning of each end step, every player's turn, if there are 3 or more quest counters on Quest for Ula's Temple, I can play a Kraken, Leviathan, Octopus, or Serpent creature card from my hand onto the battlefield for free. So that's one of the cards that really pulled the theme together of the deck and allowed me to play such big creatures in a CEDH deck. And it kept the theme. It didn't just do that. It tied everything together. It kept the theme. It made the deck my own, because I don't net deck and I don't proxy. Now, I don't mind if other people proxy in CEDH, because the cards are ridiculous, right? And especially content creators, how are they going to create more content and play all these games if they don't proxy cards, right? They won't be able to, and their content will be kind of boring because it'll be repetitive. So I don't have any problems with people who do proxy, but I myself do not proxy. I also don't own a Gaia's Cradle or any of the OG duels, and a few other cards I would really want to own in CEDH. So I find a way to make it work without those cards. So Rhystic Study obviously made the list. It's arguably the most powerful CEDH card there is. So it made the list. Huge draw engine. Helps not just for draw, but it can help my Chasm Skulker and stuff like that get ridiculously huge. And then a Sylvan Library. So Sylvan Library isn't normally a card you see in CEDH lists that people have turned away from, because it does so much damage to you. So at the beginning of your draw step, you can draw 2 additional cards. If you do, choose 2 cards in your hand drawn this way. For each of those cards, you pay 4 life or put that card on top of your library. So I can draw 2 cards, take 4 damage, and put the creature card I need on top to trigger Quest for Ula's Temple. Or I can look at the cards, see what they are, like in a brainstorm situation, send them back without taking the damage, draw the card I need, and then use a fetch land to shuffle the deck. So it's for big brain, like big brain plays where you're manipulating the top of your library. That's why it went in the deck. And if I need to be greedy and I need all 3 cards, I can just pay the 8 life and draw all 3 cards. So, you know, where other people are turned off of Sylvan Library, in this particular deck, Sylvan Library is a mainstay staple. I do not plan on cutting Sylvan Library. So now that I'm finally done with the actual tech of the deck, I can get into the lands. It's got some lands in there that you wouldn't normally see in CDH because I don't have OG duels, so I just filled it with a bunch of stuff. I've obviously got my shock lands in there. I've got a Cavern of Souls in there to name Kraken or something to make them uncounterable, or Druid. In this deck, particularly Druid is a good thing to name to make it uncounterable. There's several Druid cards in the deck. They're mostly mana dorks and Kinnan and stuff like that. So I can land like uncounterable Kinnans or uncounterable Krakens. And then whatever card I name, if I need the mana of any color, like say it's one of the lands I draw in my opening hand, I can just pick one of the cards in my hand and choose that creature type. You know, other stuff that's don't really have to be explained, like Command Tower and whatnot. Beseiju is in the deck to channel, because you can't counter a channeled ability. It's very, very difficult to get around a channel ability, so you're not casting. So, Dark Depths. This is a big part in the deck. As a CEDH deck, it has 31 lands. So, the reason why is obviously I have the Kraken in there, the Serpent in here, Asai, who allows me to draw multiple cards. If I hit like a fetch land, I'd play a fetch land, draw a card, sack the fetch land, get another land, draw another card, play an additional land. If it's a fetch land, I can then draw 4 cards off it. So I can play multiple lands per turn. Also, the land in the land suite, there is where is it at? A Thespian Sage. So Thespian Sage can become a copy of the Dark Depths, except it has this ability where it can turn into another land. And then the legendary rule comes into play where it checks state-based actions, and you sacrifice the original Dark Depths, send it to the graveyard, and then state-based actions will check that this is a Dark Depths, but it doesn't have any ice counters on it, so you sacrifice it and turn it into Merit Lodge. So other than Thespian Stage, I also have the Vampire Hex Mage and the Horror Eldrazi creature. I always forget his name. Where'd he go? The 3-drop Mutated Cultist that can turn on the Dark Depths very quickly. So, you know, early games, like turn 2, you've got a 20/20 Merit Lodge on the field. Turn 2, turn 3, flying indestructible. Even most CEDH decks will have a very hard time dealing with that, unless they got like a Deadly Relic or something in their commander up. But it is a Dark Depths deck. So, you know, cards like this, people will be like, oh, well, you can't justify that because it could come into play tapped. But it normally won't, because I've got the fetch lands in there, the shock lands in there. So I've got the typals, I've got basics in there, but I've only got one of each basic for Tainted Pact. So I've got snow lands, and then I've got original basics, which I'll get to here in a second. So that way I can Tainted Pact, and I can't miss on a Tainted Pact, right? Like I can't miss. I won't run into 2 basic lands that are the same name and stop the Tainted Pact from keep going. So this card is actually in there because I do have the fetches, I do have a Triome, I do have a shock lands. Chances I do have basics. Chances are these are just as good as a regular dual land in this deck. It's very rare that I'm not going to have an island or a swamp or an island or a forest in play in this deck. So that's why, you know, island or swamp, and where's the other one? Island or forest. So it's got a Gemstone Cavern in there for you know, starting hands, exile a card, you come in, it gives you an additional ramp, so you'll have 2 lands turn 1 plus whatever else you got in your hand. Staple in CEDH, and just some other stuff, you know, that you normally see in CEDH land bases, like an Exotic Orchard. I do have a forest in the deck. I have a island in the deck. I've got a Manamo in the deck for the 1 ring, obviously, right? That's just legendary permanents. So there's times where you can untap like your Comas and stuff like that as well. But usually it's there for the 1 ring. Yeah, my Misties. I have all the Battle Bonds lands in there in Sultai colors. So there's just another dual land. It just doesn't have the land types. So that's kind of how I went about building my land base without the original duels. I threw in the Battle Bonds lands and a couple of these check lands. But since I'm running island, snow-covered forest, snow-covered swamp, and a regular forest, it's really easy for me to get through that without having to worry about those cards coming in tapped. Adawara, another channel land. All the channel lands in Sultai colors are in the deck, and they're just great cards. If you're running a blue deck or a green deck, or a deck with blue or green in it in CEDH, there's not many reasons why you won't want to have Adawara or Boseiju in the deck. So, I've got my Overgrown Tombs, all my Shocks, all my fetches. A Prismatic Vista is in there. If I need to get one of my basic lands, I have basic lands that I need to fix my colors, and it can potentially double as a fetch land, multiple land target for Asai to help me draw multiple cards, along with my other fetches. Where am I at here? Prismatic Vista. Reflecting Pool. Sometimes this one will bite me because there are times where you go up against decks and there's not another blue deck in the pod or whatever, which is, it's rare, right? In CDH, it's rare to not play another blue deck. Chances are you're going to, but there are times where it comes up where it's not the greatest land to have in the deck, but it's in the deck anyway. Rivendell, it could come in untapped, or it could come in tapped, but chances are I'm going to have, a legendary creature or my commander, Thrasios, in play. So I'm going to be able to play it, and it'll come in untapped. And like I said, the original theme of the original 60-card deck that this CEDH deck is an ode to had a lot of scry. So I can scry to activate if I control a legendary creature, and then I can manipulate my top deck for cards like Quest for Ula's Temple. I got my snow-covered forest, my snow-covered island, my snow-covered swamp that I already went over, just so for like Tainted Pact, so that way I don't have multiple basic lands with the same name in the deck. And the name of the deck is Ice Cold Dick Killer. So obviously I'm going to have the ice lands in there because it's a Dark Depths deck. And, he's got ice counters. So it fits right on theme with the deck. And I went out of my way to build a theme into the CDH deck. Very proud of this deck. It's one of my favorite decks to play in the world. So I've got Takenuma, the Abandoned Mire in there, another channel land, in the Sultai colors for obvious reasons. That's just good. Discard Takenuma, mill 3 cards, and return a creature or planeswalker card from your graveyard to your hand. So, if I mill a Thassa's Oracle or something, I can get it back. This ability costs 1 less to activate for each legendary creature I control. Takenuma. Yeah, and also it comes in as it's a legendary land that just taps for black, and it's untapped. So it's hard for me to not find a reason to put that in there. Thespian Stage is in there for the combo line. Battle Bond lands come in untapped. Fetch land, I already covered. This is one that I recently threw in there just because I see other people in CDH play these lands, pain lands. It comes in untapped. It's always going to come in untapped. My land base is pretty fixed, but it's not like the best land base in the world. But if I need a green or a blue, I can pay 1 mana and it comes in untapped, and it's a dual land. And then the Triumph that has all my typos in it. So that's the deck. That's the whole deck, Ice Cold Deck Killer, and how it works and how the lines work in the deck. I don't have any OG duels, like I said. It's got an average mana value of 2.81, but there are some cards in the deck, so it's a little high for CDH. There are some cards in the deck that really thin that out, like Summoning Trap. It's a 6 mana card, but I'm never going to play it for 6 mana. I'm going to play it for free. All my Krakens, Leviathans, or my Krakens and my Serpents and stuff, because excuse me, I don't have any Leviathans or any Octopuses in the deck, but my Krakens and Serpents are higher mana value. I can play them for free. I can play them off a Summoning Trap. I can play them early with all the Mana Dorks and ramp package that's in the deck. So it's kind of skewed average mana value. It plays very well. So that's my mana cost and my mana production. It's fairly even. The colorless is a little skewed because the cards that do produce colorless can also produce whatever color I need them for in the right situations. So if you take that into consideration, I've never had a problem with my mana base in the deck other than my mulligans early. So we'll cover that. It's a $1,300 deck, market value. So it is cheap. It's fairly budget for a CEDH build. I mean, it also has a theme. So it's not like I went out and just grabbed every single super expensive card to build the deck. The deck is what it is. It's my creation. It's on theme. And it doesn't have certain cards in it, right? Like I don't have a Gaia's Cradle in there. I don't have any OG duels in there. If I had those cards in there, it'd probably be like a $3,000+ deck. So to finish out the Wild-Ass Deck Tech, this is something I decided to do with this. When I pulled up Manabox, I'm like, wait a second. I can just screen record and it'll hear my voice and everything I say. But I can also Goldfish the deck. So I'm going to run through a couple Goldfishes real quick at the end of this deck tech. I'm going to check on the time. 50 minutes. Wow, it's a little longer than most of my deck techs. But it's more extensive and I've covered more. So I hope you guys enjoy this style of deck tech because this is how I'm going to do all my deck techs moving forward. And to end the deck tech, because it's a CEDH deck, I'm going to do a couple Goldfish hands. So let's give it a shot. My first hand, I've got multiple lands. I can play Thrasios turn 2. I can play Fanatic Aronis. I can play Vampiric Tutor turn 1. There's no cards in my hand that's actually going to get me the combo. But I do have interaction, and I can play Thrasios with a Flare Denial in my hand and a Psych Rift in my hand. So we're going to go ahead and keep that. Turn 1, I drew my card. We'll just Morphic Pool into Battle Bonds land. We'll probably pass turn. I could Vampiric Tutor, but I don't know exactly what I want a Vampiric Tutor for. So let's just say I Vampiric Tutor. Graveyard. Ooh, I did not mean to do that. That's going to be my next card I draw. Probably wouldn't, but... So I can Vampiric Tutor. That's probably a good card. We'll just take that. It doesn't matter. I got the quest in my hand. That's tapped. Turn 2, I drew the Prismatic Vista. We'll say I probably would have drew something else because I did it out of order. So we'll just go ahead and Rejuvenating Springs. And we'll go ahead and bring Thrasios to the battlefield, Thrasios Pasios. And I'll hold up the Flare of Denial. So that's pretty good. Turn 2, I got interaction. I'm showing what I got here. I'm going to untap for my turn 3, draw a card. I've got multiple lands I can drop. We'll probably play the Overgrown Tomb. There's no telling if I would have forced a Denial yet or not, but I've got 3 mana showing, which I can then use for the quest I searched for. Oh, that would have put it on top of the deck. So I would have drew the quest. And then I can also play the Mana Dork, right? And I can still hold up the Flare. We'll see if I get a creature. Boom, that's a creature. Counter on Quest for Ruleless Temple. I don't really want to go too far into the turns after this, because at this point, I'm probably going to need to burn a Psych Rift or a Flare Denial to interact with what other people are doing. Next, I would have drew a Sylvan Library. That could probably... The Sylvan Library could probably get me to the Quest for Ruleless Temple. It's got 1 counter on it. We'll play the 4th land. We'll call it probably the Takanuma. And then I can hold up the Otawara and go from there. On my next turn, I'll 1, 2, 3. First card wasn't a creature, so it doesn't turn on the quest, but I can take Noxious Revival, Polluted Delta, take 4 damage, put the Delighted Halfling. Hold on, I'll do it. Back on top of my deck. So on the next turn, when I do draw and I'm getting ready to play, that's another counter on quest. I've got mana. I can drop the Aboleth spawn. At this point, I'll just be trying to, probably not drop the Aboleth spawn. Probably put Tevesh into play. And I don't really have what I need. So I would just probably sack the Thrasios. Because let's say I already spent my interaction. So attack the Thrasios. I can either send it back to the graveyard to get it back with Noxus Revival, or send it back to the command zone. Graveyard's probably actually better in this situation because I can Noxus Revival for 2 life. And then on my following turn, let's check it with Sylvan Library. 1, 2, 3. None of those are a creature. So the quest won't be all the way leveled up. It'll have 2 on it. Is there anything I can take? Oh, I would have got more than that. The actual would have been Dark Depths because I sacrificed Thrasios to Tevesh Szat, so I would have drew the Calling Ritual and Machine God's Effigy. Had to discard the hand. I would probably send. I'd have just spent the Obnoxious Revival to get Thrasios back to my hand. And then I'd have had to discard something, which would have probably been, the Prismatic Vista, right? So on the next turn, I would have drawn the Dark Depths. Then I got the Coma. Then I've got that. What I do is set the Coma back to the top of the library. I don't know why it's not doing that. I don't remember how to do it. So you send him back to the top of the library so that way the quest is powered up. So on the next turn you can get the quest turned on, drop the Coma for free. You've got the Fierce Guardianship in hand for free interaction. You've got multiple different pieces here for combos where you're looking decent for a win in the mid-range grind. So it was kind of more of a long play, like a mid-range hand, but it didn't play out too bad. So reset it, see how we do again. I'll want to mulligan this. I've only got 1 land. It's Prismatic Vista. I can Prismatic into a Mana Vault, but if I don't draw any land, I'm in trouble. Even if I can potentially play the Seaborn Muse turn 2, if I don't draw into the land, I'm in trouble. So we'll mulligan this one. Almost the same situation because I got a Dark Depths, but I do got the Dark Depths and the Cultist in hand, but no way to get mana. Now I can Worldly Tutor on my first opening turn to get any creature, which I could get for like Birds of Paradise or something like that, to mana ramp, play the Dark Depths turn 2, and then turn 3 I'm playing the Cultist into the Dark Depths. So we're going to keep this 1 mana hand. We're going to keep it. Well, because I got a Dark Depths in the Cultist in hand. So we're going to keep it. First card for turn, I draw. It's a Soul Ring. Great. That's actually pretty good. But we can't really fuck with the Soul Ring right now because we need the Worldly Tutor. So we'll play the green. Play the Worldly Tutor. Search my deck. We're going to go for the Birds of Paradise. There's the bird. Birds of Paradise. I'm going to move it to the top of the library. And then on my next turn, turn 2, I'll draw. I got the Birds of Paradise. Play the Birds of Paradise. I can drop the Dark Depths for turn. Can't do anything else because Dark Depths doesn't tap for mana, so I have to end my turn. So on my next turn, this is turn 3 now. Didn't draw a land, but what I can do... Ooh, I can't play the Cultist because I didn't draw another land. Oh yeah, I can't. That sucks. So I kind of whiffed there, expecting to draw a land. So I can't actually play the Cultist. But what I can do, I guess I'd have to do the Thrasios to the battlefield. Thrasios, Passios. And hope that the rest of the table doesn't have a win con right now. So I'd have to wait one more turn. And I got a Devoted Druid, which also doesn't particularly help me. So I guess what I'd have to do here is play the Soul Ring here. And now I've got it for my turn 4. So it didn't work out exactly how I planned. But turn 4, now I can play the Cultist to get the Dark Depths. Reset. Try a couple more. I'm going to try a couple more times. That one didn't work out so great. 1 mana in my opening hand. I do have a Reflecting Pool just for the purpose of mocking it. I can assume one of my opponents has green for the birds or the Soul Ring. It's not the worst hand in the world, but it could be a lot better. Let's go ahead and mulligan that. This one's a little better. We're going to go with this one. We're going to keep it. I won't have to ditch a card. That's why there's 31 lands in the deck, so I don't have to aggressively mulligan like most other people would. So I keep it. I have the Tainted Pact. I have the Thrasios Oracle in hand. Turn 1. I did draw a land. That's good. That comes in tapped because I don't have an island or a swamp. It's just the way the Goldfish tends to try to jack me up. It doesn't normally happen in the deck. So it looks like I will be probably playing the Reflecting Pool. I don't have a turn 1 play. I'm going to keep the Mox Amber in hand. Draw for turn 2. That's pretty good. Now I have some interaction in hand. If I need it, I can force a negation with a Asai. Pitch the Asai to interact with somebody easily without having to pay any mana. And I could have potentially Halfling if my opponents had green mana. So I did kind of have a turn 1. So if that was the case, I could Halfling, and then on turn 2 I drew the Force. We'll probably play the land that comes in tapped, so that way we can tap these to play Thrasios. So that's turn 2. Got a Thrasios and a Halfling on field. Untap. Now there we go. That's going to get me there. Because now I've got the Mox Amber that I can play. I don't have to worry about... I held it in hand, so I'm worried about my opponents blowing it up. Now I've got 1, 2, 3 mana. And then I can Prismatic Vista. Search for whatever mana I need. I've got a blue. I've got whatever I need. It's a green or a black. A blue or a black. And it really doesn't matter what those are. I've got 4 mana. We can Thrasios Oracle, hold priority, Tainted Pact, win the game. So that worked out actually pretty good. We'll try another one. For the third one, I've got two lands, and I've got type of lands. I've got a Voltaic Key. I've got a Worldly Tutor. I can only search for a creature. I've got a Storm Surge and a Psych Rift, which is interaction. It's an okay opening hand. I could search for like a Kinnan or one of my Mana Dorks or something like that to help me power out to get to the Thrasios and then to the Storm Surge. But I don't have anything for the Voltaic Key to power it out really quick, and I do have the Psych Rift for interaction. It's not that bad, but we'll try mulligan it. This one's a little better. We're going to go ahead and keep this one. I've got an Exotic Orchard, a Drowned Catacomb. I've got the Force Negation and a Mana Drain and an Abrupt Decay. So I've got interaction in my opening hand. We'll keep it. That's what you want. I topped into a Kinnan. So turn 1, I don't have one of the typos. So, you know, that's just how the computer tends to get you, to force you to buy OG duels. Doesn't happen that much in real life, but I don't have a turn 1 play anyway. So I can play the Catacombs in tapped, pass turn. If anybody goes to win the game, I can force a negation, pitching probably the Runo and keeping the Mana Drain. So we're just going to assume nobody did try to win the game. Boom, turn 2. I can Exotic Orchard, Thrasios, or Kinnan. I think we'll go ahead and pull out probably the Thrasios. And at this point, I have Force of Denial, Mana Drain, and Force of Negation. So I can Force of Denial, pitch in the Thrasios, or Force Negation, pitching the Runo into a Mana Drain. So I've got plenty of interaction to stop my opponents from winning. That's the way what you want in CDH. So I'm going to draw. And now I didn't get another land, but I do got a fish. So fish is going to go in. And then we're going to hold up interaction for one more turn. This will be turn 3. We're going to assume that I'm going to have to play the Force of Negation this turn. So I've only got 1 mana untapped. I don't really particularly want to get rid of Thrasios, but that's where we're at. So we're going to figure we get a couple triggers out of the Mystic. 1 and 2, maybe 3. And then we'll draw for turn. And that's how our next opening hand will look at the start of our next turn. So turn 3 comes around. I've got a Boseiju in hand. Don't got any land drops. We're going to say I had to Force a Negation. Pitch in the Runo. And then I've still got Mana Drain up. I've got Tainted Pact. I've got Boseiju. I think I probably will want to drop the Boseiju land for turn. So I'll drop the Boseiju. I think I probably will want to, I'll have to pay for the fish, right, to keep the fish up. I don't really particularly want a Manifold Key. We probably want to pay for the fish the other way so I can Mana Drain. Let's say on this next rotation that we're going to have to Flare of Denial. But we're going to force out Kinnan first. So we got the Kinnan, we got the Thrasios, we got the fish, no mana, but I've got the Flare of Denial in my hand. And then the backup Mana Drain. Now we're going to get a couple more draws off the fish. And we'll get a draw for turn. So now on my next turn, this would be turn 4. I play the land. I can play the Basalt Monolith. I've got infinite mana. So let's go like that. I probably will get rid of the fish at this point because I don't want to pay 2. Because I can't play the Basalt Monolith in my upkeep. So the fish is going to be gone. We create infinite colorless mana. And I have a blue or a black. So with infinite mana, what can I do? I can Thrasios activation. So we can sit there and just Thrasios activation to the end of the game. Boom, 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 boom. And just keep going and going and going and going. Thrasios activations forever. There's a Lotus Petal. We'll take that. Can't play another land. I already played my land for turn. I've got one mana open plus infinite colorless. There's a combo there with Hazel's Brewmaster. This land does hit the field, but it's tapped because of Thrasios activations. Whatever else I got in my hand is fine. I can exile a Spirit Guide for green mana. But I don't particularly need to. I just need to go till I hit Thassa's Oracle. There's a Mox Amber. I got that. That's online. I can pay for that. I got 3 mana. I can pay for Thassa's Oracle. Someone tries to interrupt it. I got a force now. So I've got a protected win. And you can just go and go and go and go forever. All the lands hit. I've got protected win. All these other cards that aren't lands go to my hand. Wow, where's the Thassa's Oracle at? There it is. So I got only a couple cards left. I'm going to end up with all my lands into play tapped. I've got Thassa's Oracle. I've got the Mox Amber. I've got the Lotus Petal. I've got one more land if I need it. Thassa's Oracle. I've got protection, so I can hold priority or whatever. Activate, win the game. We'll do one more. Those played out very well. We'll do one more just for some variance. That is not a very keepable hand. I can Dark Ritual into a Tainted Pact, which can potentially get me the Machine God's Effigy. But all I've got is a black mana and no way to play Thrasios. So we're going to mulligan it. This isn't particularly good either. A blue mana and Lotus Petal. I got Thespian Stage. But other than Thrasios, I've got nothing. I could potentially Rhystic Study early. If you can Rhystic Study early, that's pretty good. But right now it's looking like Thrasios. I think I'll go for the turn 2 Rhystic Study. So we'll keep it, because I've got a turn 2 Rhystic. That's decent. Turn 1, draw Sylvan Library. Not too bad, all things considered. So we'll go ahead and we'll drop the Manamo. We'll play nothing. And turn 2 comes around. I've got a Ice-Crown Scepter. Nothing to put on the Scepter, but I can go ahead and just Thespian Stage, Lotus Petal, into Rhystic Study. Sack the Lotus Petal. We've got Rhystic here. I can assume that I'm going to draw 2 or 3 cards off that Rhystic in the rotation. We're talking about turn 2, so it's 2 cards there, and then a card for turn. It gave me my other land. Play that. Oh, which card's about to grave? Is it Shock? Yep, Shock it in. Now I've got black, blue, and colorless. I've got 3 mana. I've got a Rhystic. I could go Sylvan, but Sylvan isn't going to be as good, I think, in this situation. I could go Sylvan Quest. Ooh, that's going to be real good, actually. No, I can't, because I can't produce green. So I can't go Sylvan, but I can go Black Market. So that's what we'll do. We'll Black Market turn 3. Turn 4, we're going to have an extra treasure and an extra card. I probably won't create the Shapeshifter, because it's colorless, right? Colorless, yeah. So I won't really care about the Shapeshifter, but we will go ahead and draw a couple cards off a Rhystic. Draw for the Black Market, draw for turn. And that's how my next hand's going to look. No more land, actually. That's kind of crazy. I do got a fish. I can play. I got a treasure. Oh, that's not what I do. I think what you do here is you tap 1, power out the fish, right? Use the treasure to hit the Delighted Halfling, right? I've got 2 more mana here, which we probably go ahead and use for the Arcane Signet. And then we pass turn with a fish, a Rhystic, a Halfling, a Signet. Oh, I can use the Signet now. Boom. For the Ula's Temple. That's actually not bad at all. That's pretty good grindy play there. Sets me up for the rest of the game. I can untap. I'm going to end up drawing probably 4 or 5 cards off the fish in the Rhystic. And then I'm going to get another card draw plus a treasure off the Black Market for the start of my next turn. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Then another card for turn. Something like that. Card for the Black Market. Now I've got another land. I've got Thassa's Oracle. Do I got Demonic Constellation? I do. Now I can just go ahead and jam Thassa's Oracle. I could put that on the field. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got a treasure for 6. I probably wouldn't want to play that. I probably want to play that or that. But either way, we got some land. We got like 6 mana. 1, 2, 3. Probably 4. 5. She's legendary? Not legendary. So I've got 5 mana. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5. The card I drew for turn didn't turn on the temple. I could have brought a creature out. I don't really need it, because I just play 4 and then jam the Demonic Consultation. It's not protected, but I'd want to jam it anyway to see if I can win the game. If I don't win the game, I've still got 2 mana left, which would probably be an In Search for Greatness or a Thrasios. Because if I play the Thrasios, then I can play. I can turn the Mox Amber on. So that's how it goes. Still pretty good. After 3 or 4 Goldfishes, it turned out pretty good. Every hand was pretty good. They were all playable. This one's a little different. It's got black sources, or a black source, a blue source, nothing to do right away. Probably want to mulligan that one. I could go for a potential, Black Market. That wouldn't be until turn 3. This one's a little better. I got a Soul Ring. I got a Mox Amber. We'll keep this one. Overgrown Tomb. And a Soul Ring. Oh, I didn't have a blue source. That was kind of fucked. Turn 2. Oh, that's a 5, 6, 7, so I didn't draw my card. 8. Turn 2. Draw the card for turn 2. There goes the blue source. Comes in tap, though, because I don't control a legendary. So is there anything I can do about that? 3 with a green? No, we'll just play that. It comes in tapped. Can't do nothing turn 2. I've got... That kind of sucked. That was kind of worse than I expected it to be. Turn 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 land. I've got a black source. I could play Tishana's. I could play the Kraken, the Amber. We'll probably bring out the Tevesh. Make a couple bodies. Play the Amber. There's nothing I can do for 1. But make a couple bodies and pass turn 3. And now turn 4, now I'm cooking with grease because I can sacrifice, draw a bunch of cards. And I got my interaction. If they try and counter something, I've got my summoning trap. So as you can see, the deck plays really, really well. Even with a bad hand that wasn't as good as I expected it to be, where I can't produce my colors or whatever, or the computer puts me in situations where I do get the lands that come in tapped, the deck is still doing exactly what I want it to do. Almost every single time. It's like Sex Panther. 60% of the time, it works every time. And that's my wild-ass deck tech. That's Ice Cold Dick Killer. I hope you enjoy my Thrasios Tevesh Szat build. I hope you guys like the playthrough and the goldfishing, because this is how I'm going to do all my deck techs moving forward. I'm Mr. J. This is W.A.D. MTG. I'm out. Peace.